динамични, возбудливи, но и опасни времиња. И за геополитиката, и за македонската реалност, особено од аспект на евроатлантските интеграции. Во вакви околности, ние во Скопје денес имаме еден исклучително интересен гостин. Новиот известувач за Македонија во Европскиот парламент, господинот Томас Вајц. Исто така ќе ви донесеме и некои други теми кои што се поврзани со европските интеграции од различни аспекти. Останете со нас. Mr. White, welcome. Welcome to Agenda 35 and to Skopje. This is your first official visit in this capacity.
Yes, indeed it is. It's my first visit in my capacity as a rapporteur, so as the person who is responsible to write and negotiate the Parliament's report. But I have been visiting your country several times in the past years.
It really is a pleasure having you here. You received a lot of support among Macedonian citizens for your position when it comes to the untying the knot with Bulgaria. You said that yes, constitutional amendments should be done, but also we need to receive some guarantees on the way in order not to make this happen again. So how do you argue this position, having in mind that it's not something that we often hear from officials from Brussels?
I think it is very obvious that bilateral issues need to be discussed between different countries, but they should not decide or have an all-too-decisive impact on our accession process. Yes, for the accession you need to have good neighborly relations at the very point of accession, but still this accession process should not be occupied by member states to solve bilateral issues. And in this regard, a big part of my job will unfortunately be to convince Bulgarian colleagues to release their veto and to set the way free to start negotiations with North Macedonia.
This sounds very good, but do you see a real possibility for something like this to happen, having in mind that the position they are holding?
Yes, I mean, if I would not be motivated to find ways to untie this knot, I think I would be the wrong person in this position. And I know already from a lot of talks also with Bulgarian members that a lot of Bulgarian politicians actually understand that the real issue is about good neighborly relations, so about establishing good economical cooperation on transport, on security, but also cultural cooperation. The situation in Bulgaria is still quite heated. They had 7 elections in 3 years, so ongoing election campaigning. But now I hope that we have a government that will be able to serve maybe even for a full term. And so I hope that there's a chance that we come back to reason, to the facts of reality, that actually both countries and all countries are profiting from good relations with each other, and at the end of the day it's about fulfilling the needs of citizens, and they are not about an exact identical interpretation of history. The needs of citizens are about jobs, about income, about infrastructure, about functional institutions, about good neighborly relations, and this is what we have to deliver, and I see a lot of also reasonable voices in Bulgaria who are ready to advocate for that.
Yes, we said that bilateral issues should not be part of the process, but now as they are, let's go back to these guarantees that we are looking for. Can you maybe explain what kind of guarantees can we hope for? There are many ideas on the table, but still nothing concrete.
It is a matter of fact that meanwhile bilateral relations between Bulgaria and North Macedonia are even part of the negotiation process. So we will need clear statements from the European Commission and the Council, and we will need statements from the Bulgarian government that with the inclusion of the Bulgarian minority into the constitution, the bilateral issues that need to be solved within the accession process are fulfilled, and that there will be no more additional requests being put on the table in relation to the accession process. When it comes to neighborly relations, this is a long process. I am an Austrian citizen, and it took us 50 years to come to a common understanding of our common history. As an example, I'm from Steierska, so from the Austrian part of Styria, and it takes decades to come to a common understanding. We all have history together, sometimes very painful history together. We should give it the time it takes.
When we see the situation in Ukraine and how it is developing now, from this perspective, do you think that Europe has been too tolerant for nationalist and imperialist narratives, too tolerant for too long, maybe?
The European Union is built on trying to build a consensus between each other. European Union is also built based on the acceptance of diversity within Europe. So it is also impossible for the functionality of the European Union to allow diversity, also diversity of opinions. And this is what you also see. Sometimes that means that it's a lengthy process to come to a final conclusion. But related to the geostrategical events that we see, Europe is now gathering very much around the common sense and around the common cause, because it becomes more than clear that if we do not take our own destiny in our own hands, nobody else will do for us. And in this regard, I see good developments, encouraging developments in terms of strengthening of European unity, and I think this is also a good message when it comes to the accession process, because finally I think all member states have understood that the Western Balkan region and North Macedonia is an integral part of Europe, is the inner yard of European Union, and there's a clear will and a clear motivation to now move on with the accession process and finally deliver on the promises that European Union also has been given and not always totally fulfilled.
Do you think that maybe because of the blocked accession process and the enlargement policy, Europe became weaker? Maybe the position that Europe holds geopolitically would be different now if the enlargement policy was implemented better?
There's a very clear answer. Together we're stronger. And this is what we experienced in the European Union, and this is also how European Union was built originally, with a few members, built on the ruins of Second World War. And with every enlargement step, you could see that we got economically more important in the world. We got, in terms of democratic values, more important in the world. Also in terms of keeping peace within Europe as much as possible. Two events we were not able to prevent. This was the Balkan Wars, still a very painful experience in our immediate neighborhood, actually within our European families of peoples, and now the Russian aggression on Ukraine. But also there, this makes us Europeans stand closer together, and yes, indeed, finalizing the enlargement process will increase our role globally and will increase our coherence within Europe. It will make us stronger.
People in North Macedonia, Macedonian citizens, they're disappointed because of all this delaying in the process, but still, according to all relevant polls, majority of them, they're still supporting European Union and they're pro-Europeans in a way. What is your message to them? How to keep the European spirit alive in these circumstances?
Well, first of all, the accession process is not the only level of cooperation that we're having. European Union is the biggest donor when it comes to foreign investments, when it comes to also supporting the democratic development of the country. Since many, many years now, we're talking about a growth pact that has a volume of 800 million euros over 5 years. I think this is substantial sums also to support the not just economical but also societal and democratic development of the country. So we have been establishing an excellent cooperation over the years already. And I hope citizens can also see how the country has been also profiting from this cooperation. And certainly also the European Union has been profiting from North Macedonia coming closer to our European families and sharing more and more values, but also joining more and more programs on the European level. So I think it's a success story already. Yes, it is overshadowed by the stalemate when it comes to the actual accession process, and I regret that very much. My personal opinion is that we actually introduced a certain mistake into the accession process, and this is related to the question of unanimity for every interim step, which I think it's not well founded in reasonable arguments. Yes, sure, we need unanimity to start negotiations. Yes. We need unanimity to finalize them. That is very clear. But for the intermediate steps, and this is 150 decisions every year in the Council. If you look at the whole enlargement process, this is overburdening also our capacity to find compromises between each other. So there, I think we also on the side of European Union need to think about some reforms in the process process of accession.
So there was a warning from many experts at the moment when bilateral issues were mixed with the process, that we're going to all focus with Bulgaria and bilateral issues, and we're going to last focus on domestic reforms.
Yes.
And that's exactly what happened, because now when we think about European integration, we immediately connect them with Bulgaria. This is something that really undermined the processes, the substance of reforming the country. Your visit here, maybe you used your visit to see how the reforming process is going, and what messages did you send to the Macedonian authorities?
Well, clearly for us in the European Union, I mean, we have our homeworks to do to get Bulgaria back on the side of the reasonable supporters of enlargement. But clearly enlargement is a merit-based process. Countries need to be ready to join European Union. This is about implementation of the European legislation, of our common legal basis, so the so-called acquis. It's also about preparing the country's economy for accession. So and this is a both sides' interest, because economy needs to be strong to be able to use the opportunities that we see within European Union. But clearly there's also quite a backdrop when it comes to the pace of reforms in the country. There's a lot of reforms pending, many of them related to the reform agenda, related also to the Growth Pact. So if the country really wants to get access to these substantial amount of money, I mean 800 million euros, there are certain reforms needed, and already we see a delay now. And unfortunately, if the delay is more than 1 year, that money will be lost for the country. And it will be very hard for any government to explain to the citizens why they have not delivered on the reforms they have actually promised to deliver. And the country is then losing substantial support from the European Union. And this is about refilling the pending positions in judiciary, and also making sure that judiciary is always an independent body, independent from political influence. This is one of the core pillars of democracy, and is of core importance for the functioning of the state. Also, when it comes to reforms of the electoral code, it should be delivered until June 25, so well before the local elections, so we can ensure that we have local elections that are functioning under modern European standards, and nobody can question the results at the end of the day. This should be actually in the interest of any political party to have good procedures there, and there's few more reforms. So it's of key importance that your government delivers on the reform agenda, so we can move on also with the cooperation on the different fields.
Which areas do you think are more critical? You mentioned judiciary, maybe
yes,
there.
Judiciary is a key sector because you have to ensure that decisions of state prosecutors, anti-corruption prosecutors, but also judges are not compromised through political intervention. No one in our democratic system should stand above the law. No one. The law needs to be exactly the same for every one of us, no matter if you're a simple worker or farmer or if you're the president of the country. Everybody needs to have the same value in front of law. And also I must say, unfortunately, there's a certain impression in the moment when you listen to the discussion about replacing judges or replacing the state prosecutor. I did not look into the details of accusations, but the impression that we're getting on the European side is that at least there's an attempt to have some political interventions, and this impression is not helping the country at all. Yes, but it's also about electoral law, as I mentioned, also about the public services, public procurement. There's legislation pending. When it comes about public servants, I think one thing we have to say clearly, the processes of giving jobs to people needs to be transparent and based on qualification. And unfortunately, we've seen from different political sides that important positions within the government, within institutions of the country, are given solely along political affiliations. And unfortunately, in a country like North Macedonia, you do not have all too big pools of expertise. So, dismissing people that are experts within their jobs just because they came in the wrong time or might have had given their position by another political party in government. You're losing experts, you're losing expertise. This is hindering your country's progress. This is hindering your country's development. So it's of high importance that these jobs are given with a transparent process based on qualification. And this is also one of the legislation that is still pending.
Yes. Let's go back to geopolitics and talk about the elephant in the room. How do you estimate the clash between the EU and the new US administration?
It is a very unfortunate situation. Our American friends, and I hope I can still call them our friends, have chosen to leave the common post-Second World War peace order with announcing that they will retake the Panama Channel, or that Trump wants to buy Greenland, and if it's not for sale, he's not even excluding a military intervention. Greenland is the territory of an EU member state. This is really not how we should talk to friends. You don't bully your friends, you don't blackmail your friends. Still, it is not totally clear whether the Trump administration will really move forward on all these topics. There's talks, and we from the European side, we try to tone down the speech and the tone of what is going on. We're trying to keep good relations with our US friends, but at the end of the day, if they do not want to cooperate with us anymore, Europe is strong enough to stand on its own feet. And I can also tell you from the ranks of the Commission, from the Council, from the European Parliament, that there's quite a dynamic happening now of new unity within the European Union, because we all understand, no matter what political affiliation, we all understand that Europe needs to take its own destiny in its own hands more than before, as we were relying also on the good cooperation with our American friends. But I'm in politics since 25 years. We've seen difficult times on many levels. We will do our best to keep as good relations to US as possible. And
yes, President Macron was there.
Yes, exactly. And he was doing good fact-checking, actually, even accepted by Donald Trump. I don't know if you have
in
seen
life,
this.
yes.
Yes. So it seems that with very concrete arguments and an eloquent way of presenting them to him, Donald Trump is ready to accept facts based on factual numbers and not just on alternative imaginations.
In a charming way. Probably you have to use also
Yes.
the charm
Yes,
in politics.
yes, and maybe it's also helpful that Mr. Macron is a male person. I think males have a bit more chance to reach or to be heard by Donald Trump. But,
Yes,
yes.
but here in the Balkans, you know, when we are talking about free world, free Western world, we were always putting EU and USA in the same box, and they were our pillars in a way for the stability, for the democracy also. Now when this pillar is shaken, do you see any danger for the stability in the region, having in mind the history and even the situation now?
Yes, every political disruption on the global level is endangering the stability in the region. It was the same with the invasion of Putin's army into Ukraine. Also, that had the potential to destabilize the region. The region is still very fragile, and peace is still very fragile, and the bilateral relations are still very fragile. We are all very aware of that. And we've seen in the first Trump administration that some of the proposals that have been put on the table had the potential to inflame the whole region again and to inflame ethnic tensions. We all, from the European Union, but I think all political stakeholders in the region, need to be aware of this and need to be sensitive. And this is also an important message to the government of North Macedonia. Don't fuel additional division with inflammatory speech. And yes, sometimes things are outrageous, but the smart person, the forward-looking person, the person that has the common interest in mind, is wise enough not to react on provocations, but to stay calm and to stay precise. This is the best way to actually defend the interest of your own peoples, and also the best way to help also others to calm down the tone. The European Union is more and more aware that we will now need to be the leaders in terms of modern democracy, rule of law, fundamental rights. This is a role we're good in, and we cannot totally rely on the Trump administration. But I also want to say USA is more than the Trump administration, and there's quite some resistance also within the United States, in many of the states, in many of the cities. So there's still a very strong support from big parts of the US political establishment also for the Western Alliance, let's call it like this, and I'm quite hopeful that we will be able to build on this and also with these parts of the political US establishment. So let's not overestimate the damage a Trump administration can do, but yes, there's a role to play for us in the European Union, but also for all of us in Europe together. And I don't know if you have seen how much UK is again gathering together with European Union, or Norway is joining the discussions.
Yes, you brought me to my next question,
Yes.
actually, because I wanted to ask about the relations with the United Kingdom, because we can see that things are developing there. How do you see the position of Great Britain in all this chaos?
Yes. Great Britain was driven into Brexit by very populist narratives. Many of the sayings or many of the numbers that were used and so have been shown that they were wrong, actually. And also the estimations that UK will flourish economically after Brexit have shown to be simply wrong. And meanwhile, even some Tory politicians admit that it might have been a mistake to actually leave the European Union. And that also shows how much we all profit from the common union. Bigger states, smaller states. I mean, UK was one of the three biggest, economically biggest contributors to our common GDP. They have a very strong economy. They have global relations, historical global relations, and still you could see how much troubles they faced economically, in terms of workplaces, in terms on many, many sectors. Meanwhile, nearly 2/3 of Great Britain's citizens would like to rejoin the European Union. It's not going to happen so soon. But the current is re-establishing good relations, is re-establishing economical relations, and especially is re-establishing the cooperation on security. Because whether I like it or not, the reality is that we need to take also our own security in our own hands. And we have a lot of means, we have a lot of investment into defense, but we will need to start to cooperate even closer, including UK and including, I hope, all the European nations that are within and still outside of European Union.
Yes, there are some optimistic views, but still with everything that has been said, we can conclude that democracy is in crisis. I mean, worldwide. And do you see an exit from this crisis, or do you think that we are witnessing some irreversible change of the global order?
The global order has been changing and is constantly changing, and it has become a multipolar world where it's not clear in the moment who is actually joining which alliance. So let me take the example of India. India is kind of aligning with everyone in the moment. They're aligning with Chinese on some topics. They're aligning with Russia when it comes to purchasing their oil. They're also aligning with US and the European Union at the same time. So they try to still play on all fields. But they're the biggest democracy of the world. So I wouldn't call democracy in decline. We can see over the years of also global developments that it's kind of a pendulum. Pendulum goes into one direction, and we've seen quite some good developments, I would say, also on global diplomacy, on just look at the Paris Agreement, and we've reached quite something on global efforts to limit climate change, as an example. Okay, now in
The
the moment
USA left.
Yes, in the moment the pendulum is going in the other direction, but that doesn't mean it will remain
Eventually
there.
it will come
yes,
back.
exactly, and we need to be prepared for the next phase. But for this phase now, it's important that we make sure that we secure the progress that we have had and that we have seen, that we secure our democratic systems and stabilize them, where it's also an important point to keep our support up for civil society. I know in the moment there's a bit of a momentum to criticize civil society. I think this is unfortunate. Civil society is a key ingredient of modern democratic societies.
Also the media. Also the media.
Also the media, absolutely. Also the independent media, that is important. Also investigative journalism.
Yes.
I know for me as a politician it's sometimes uncomfortable because I'm asked difficult questions and my colleagues, but this is an important corrective also for the work we're doing as politicians, and every true democrat should value the role of civil society and the role they play, whether it's environment or anti-corruption or good governance, because they keep constantly reminding us, as journalists do and investigative journalism does, they keep reminding us to the values that we have signed up to the core fundamental rule of law principles that we all should follow, and this is healthy in a democracy, and I think this would value and this would also this needs to be supported by society but also by governments.
Mr. Weitz, thank you very much for the messages and for the interview, and hope to see you soon, maybe sooner than we think, when the pedal is on the other side.
We will see each other soon. You will have me in the country for 4.5 years, and as I'm showing now also, I'm not sitting in my office in Brussels and then writing my report based on some people telling me something. I'm coming to the country, and I'm a big friend of North Macedonia. I will do my best to support you in the accession
You're welcome.
process.
Thank you very much.
Технологијата денес зазема се поголема улога во светот на социјалните иновации. Blink 4221 ги комбинира овие две работи. На кој начин?
Центарот за социјални иновации, Blink 4221, е основан 2011 година и работиме како платформа која што обидува различни профили на професионалци и се трудиме со нашиот тим и со исклучително млади луѓе да ги поврземе технологијата, социјалните иновации и импактот, односно влијанието врз заедниците на национално, на регионално и на европско ниво. Генерално сме заинтересирани и се интересираме како може технологијата и новите напредни технологии кои што денеска се тука присутни и се повеќе и повеќе се дел од секојдневието, да може да бидат искористени за добро, за напредок, да надминат одредени предизвици, да отворат нови можности, да креираат соработки во различни сектори и секако да овозможат подобар живот во заедницата, да ги унапредат процесите како што е дигиталната трансформација, која што е неизбежна во повеќе сегменти и секако да креираат нови решенија кои што сепак се насочени кон граѓаните и им служат на граѓаните, а не обратно. Можам да кажам дека сме фокусирани на три сектори или три полиња на кои што развиваме технологија, така што образованието ни е еден од секторите кои што навистина се трудиме да креираме технологии и решенија и алатки кои што може да го подобрат образованието. Другиот сегмент се секако јавните институции, односно граѓаните и заедниците, каде што интензивно работиме како можеме да ги направиме јавните услуги подостапни, да ги дигитализираме. И третиот сектор кој што нас не поприлично драг и можеме да направи најмногу интересна работата е културата. Интензивно работиме во културата. Започнавме со културното наследство, меѓутоа работиме и со европски филм, меѓутоа и работиме многу со музеи, со галерии и со различни представници од културниот и креативниот сектор, трудејќи се да развиеме решенија кои што ќе бидат да речеме атрактивни за младата генерација која што е многу насочена во телефоните и која што денеска бара кога ќе оди да доживее некое културно искуство, тоа да биде интерактивно.
Кои се конкретните иновации кои што ги имате развиено во секоја од овие сфери и која од нив практично предизвика најголем интерес кај младите кои што се вашата целна група?
Blink може да се пофали нескромно, меѓутоа може да се пофали дека во изминативе години имавме можност да работиме во малку поголем проектен тим и да успееме да развиеме решенија кои што не беа само интересни или достапни за Македонија, меѓутоа и да направат влијание во регионот и во Европа. Почнувајќи од VR Skills Lab, односно платформата на која што развивавме дигитални алатки за обука и тренинг на млади луѓе, имавме можност во поширок продукцијски тим да развиеме две апликации. Едната апликација е за одржување на електрични инсталации и која што ја користат средните училишта, електротехничките средни училишта во Македонија, а другата апликација е управување со столбен кран, која што ја користат тренинг центрите кои што даваат обука за кранисти. Овие апликации се од исклучително значење во образованието, бидејќи се креирани во виртуелна средина, односно овозможуваат учениците, односно возрастните кои што се сертифицираат во една безбедна средина да стекнат знаење и вештини и да може да го вежбаат или да ги усовршуваат своите вештини без да се грижат како бил претходниот пат и како бил следниот пат, бидејќи средината е безбедна. Од целата анализа што ја направивме, управувањето со столбен кран излезе како една многу предизвикувачка обука, не само во Македонија, туку генерално во Европа, бидејќи сепак, нели, покрај тоа што ќе го вие поминете тренинг центарот и обуката, сепак треба на крајот да отидете некаде и да вежбате на градилиште, на реален кран, кој што за и самите тренинг центри е поприлично скапо. И од искуството што го имавме со средните училишта, навистина им даде една нова димензија и на професорите, кои што се покажуваат дека применуваат нови технологии. Во 2021 година, иако беше коронска година, ние имавме одлична соработка со Националната установа Стоби и со тимот таму ја развивме првата апликација која што користи виртуелна реалност за едно културно доживување. Со исклучително млад и ентузијастички тим изработивме 8 минута анимација која што го реставрира во виртуелна средина целиот театар, кој што бил огромен, гламурозен, 13 спратови, 7.000 луѓе примал. И има едно доживување кое што се вели гладиаторите се враќаат во Стоби. Целата анимација ги води посетителите на едно доживување каде што лично во виртуелна средина присуствуваат на една таква гладиаторска битка, да речеме, што се случувала во Стоби во 3 и 4 век. VR доживувањето е супер и за деца и за возрастни. И за сите дава едно ново доживување и едно ново искуство кое што не го гледаме секој ден на археолошките локалитети. Потоа ја изработивме апликацијата Емисија, која што денес е достапна на 3 локалитети покрај Стоби во Србија во Минакиум и во Емона во Словенија, која што го надминува моментот на таа големина што имаат археолошките локалитети и кога ќе дојде некоја вие да немате водич. Затоа што некогаш доаѓаат цели групи. Емисија им дозволува на еден геймифициран начин да поминат низ локалитетите, да научат, да влезат во чевлите на некоја си личност која што е ставена во апликацијата и ги води посетителите. Она што сега работиме во делот на културата и мислам дека многу ни е драго што Македонија за прв пат е лидер на еден голем проект на Креативна Европа, каде што работиме на развој на модел кој што користи вештачка интелигенција и големи јазични модели и големи дата податоци да креира решение кое што ќе ви овозможи да разговарате во прво лице со познати личности од историјата преку нивните скулптури и портрети. Така што ќе во наредните 3 години со партнери од Словенија, Латвија, Грузија, Грција и Македонија ќе работиме да го развиеме тој модел. Ќе создадеме диалози или да разговарате со луѓе од историјата и да ги прашате директно тоа што ви интересира преку некои нивни познати скулптури и портрети што се во музеите и во галериите.
Кој ја развива практично таа платформа и каде се очекува да биде имплементирана?
Платформата се вика Talking Heads, бидејќи вие може да разговарате, нели, да размислувате како личност што ќе ја одберете.
Последно од вашиот арсенал на иновации или така наречени социјални иновации е софтверот за препознавање на корупција во јавните набавки, кој што е во завршна фаза и кој што вие го очекувате со нетрпение, но ние со неочекување би сакале да знаеме кој ќе го користи и кои ќе бидат резултатите од истиот.
Последно нешто што ќе се објави многу скоро, можеби веќе следниот месец, е софтверот кој што веќе 2 години го работиме и кој што е исклучително развиен со македонски тим. Се работи за систем за законску согласеност и интегритет во јавните набавки, ФИДА, кој што ќе овозможи сите оние вработени во јавните институции кои што подготвуваат јавни набавки, значи во процесот на подготовка, уште пред да ги објават на официјалниот систем на ЕСЈН, да можат преку системот да ги проверат јавните набавки и за се она што не е законски усогласено, дури ако има и некои ненамерни грешки, софтверот, односно системот ќе им подигне црвено знаменце. Системот има за цел да ја намали корупцијата, односно да ги елиминира сите оние елементи кои што ограничуваат, например, конкуренцијата, или сите оние елементи кои што немаат комплетна законска усогласеност, недостасуваат одредени сегменти кои што една јавна набавка треба да ги има за да биде, нели, подеднакво достапна за сите оние кои што може да се пријават на истата. Да ги елиминира и човечките грешки кои што многу често се случуваат, нели, во пишување, во креирање на различни документи. Се со цел да јавната набавка кога ќе дојде на системот на ЕСЈН да биде во најдобро решение, односно во најдобро издание. Системот има дата база на преку 70.000 јавни набавки од минатото, значи од последниве 5 години, на кои што ќе го тренираме моделот. Значи користи големи дата бази на податоци, користи машинско учење и големи јазични модели кои што треба и ги тренираме постојано да бидат се подобри и подобри и секако користи вештачката интелигенција во идентификување на тие одстапувања од законот. Од следниот месец, од кога ќе се објави системот, ќе влеземе во една тест фаза со надворешни корисници. Имаме пилот 3 општини во проектот, кои што во еден интензивен период ќе поминат што може повеќе јавни набавки со цел да направиме, односно, финална верзија и финално одлучување како и све треба да изгледа во системот. И мислам дека доколку покажеме една успешност со општините, системот ќе има многу применливост во било која друга јавна институција, државна јавна институција која што подготвува јавна набавка и ќе може да го елиминира оној човечки фактор кој што, нели, води до некои коруптивни елементи во процесот на подготовка на јавните набавки. Така што верувам дека ФИДА ќе биде следната година најреволуционерниот продукт кој што сме го изработиле тука во Македонија.
Во следната епизода се гледаме со нови интересни гости и со нови теми од процесот на европските интеграции. Останете со Агенда 35 и со јавниот сервис.